For the final time this regular season, the Sacramento Kings and Golden State Warriors meet tomorrow night in a game that, dare I say, the Sacramento Kings have to win if they want any shot of avoiding the play-in and making it to the 6th seed. Frankie Cartoscelli from SacTown Sports 1140 joins me to preview Kings and Warriors right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. Kings, Warriors, Chase Center, the final time this season. The Kings so far are up in the season series 2-1. But the Warriors are surging, dominating really since the acquisition of Jimmy Butler. Meanwhile, the Sacramento Kings are just trying to keep their heads above water in this playoff race in the Western Conference during this stretch of doom that they are going through. This game is massive. The Kings win this. Not only do they get a game up on the Warriors, who are in 6th place, the 6th and final guaranteed playoff spot, they also would win the tiebreaker. And in my opinion, if the Kings are going to catch the Warriors and actually have any chance of being a top 6 team, they'll likely need to tie the Warriors. I don't know if they're just going to jump them in the standings over these final 18 games. So this feels like, I know must win is overused, but in the cases or in the context of the Kings making it to the 6th seed, this feels like a must-win game for the Sacramento Kings inside the Chase Center. Will the Kings have enough to get a win over these Warriors that are on an absolute tear right now with Jimmy Butler joining the squad? Frankie Cartoscelli joins me right now to preview this game, how we're feeling going into this game. We'll talk about the impending return of Domantas Sabonis. At the time of this recording, we do not know if he's going to be playing for the Kings on Thursday night against the Warriors or not, but his return is hopefully coming soon. How will that positively impact the Sacramento Kings, or should I say how much of a difference will that make for the Sacramento Kings with the way that they're playing right now and their ability to handle these tough games in this very, very difficult schedule? Frankie and I break it all down right here for you on Locked On Kings. Please enjoy. I'm sure people get tired of hearing how big this game is. It's a monumental game. It's a massive game. You can pretty much say the same thing about every single game for the remainder of this season for the Sacramento Kings. But Kings versus Warriors inside the Chase Center tomorrow has some pretty major implications. Frankie Cartoscelli from SacTown Sports 1140. You can hear him on the Return of the Roar podcast. He's one of the excellent Sacramento Kings writers over there at SacTown Sports. Back here with me on Locked On Kings for the first time since becoming a dad. So Frankie got to be got to hide behind his child and not be there for all of the chaos that the Sacramento Kings put us through around trade deadline time. But here he goes. He returns for this playoff race. And Frankie, we got a game against the Golden State Warriors that has tiebreaker implications. The Warriors in 6th place. Am I going too far as to say that I feel like if the Sacramento Kings lose this game, they lose out on any chance of being a top 6 team?
Matt, thanks for having me back, my friend. And yes, I am now, as you have always told me, what's going to come with parenthood is a lot of unpredictability and long nights, and we're dealing with those right now. And
look at the new dad glow. He's got that new dad glow.
Yeah, it's the spit up. It's the spit up. It's the fresh wipe. Just freshly wiped off spit off. But I would like to say, I know Deuce Mason, our friend, hates the phrase "must win" unless it's actually a must win game.
For sure.
But I mean, you kind of pointed out, like, if they lose tomorrow night, they're 4.5 back with 17 to go. And Golden State's schedule is far easier than Sacramento, who enters play as the second hardest remaining strength of schedule in the NBA. The only team with the harder schedule is Phoenix, who is in a free fall right now. So I honestly don't think it's too far-fetched to say it's pretty much a must-win game. I mean, if you're wanting to win the 6th seed and you don't have another opportunity to play Golden State down the final stretch, this is it. And it's important as far as if the Warriors do kind of run into some trouble, the Kings with a win tomorrow night would own the tiebreaker. They win 3 out of 4 regular season matchups. So it's important from that standpoint of, okay, maybe you still can't pick up 2.5 more games. And, of course, that's a lot easier to pick up than 4.5, but you never know. And you have the tiebreaker. So it's important to have those tiebreakers. And that's why that loss against the Clippers the other night hurt so bad as well. The Kings falling short. They had a chance to, maybe even things up on April 11th. So I know that the phrase must win is overused, but for the Kings tomorrow night, if you want to be automatically in those top 6 spots and not have to deal with the play-in, I feel like you kind of need tomorrow night's game.
So how are you feeling going into it? I mean, a road game, the Warriors are on freaking fire right now. I think they're 12-1 with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. Like, they've completely turned their season around. Everything's going right for them. They're, of course, very difficult to beat any night, but especially on their home floor. We still don't know about the status of Domantas Sabonis. Like, how are you feeling about the Kings' chances going into the Chase Center tomorrow night?
I mean, I feel good about them, only because I think the Kings have played the Warriors pretty well in 3 or 4 matchups so far this year. That matchup out of the All-Star break was really weird and it's kind of uncharacteristic of what we've seen from the Kings so far. And, the Knicks game, I think we all kind of looked at that game and that matchup and said, okay, even without Jalen Brunson, this team matchup-wise is a nightmare. And you can make an argument now the Warriors are a little more difficult of a matchup with Jimmy Butler. They get Jonathan Kuminga back from a lengthy absence tomorrow night, and they now have a surplus of forwards that could pose to be a problem for Sacramento. So maybe we'll see if that still holds true. I still feel like the Kings match up well against them. But it's going to come down to, like you said, Domantas Sabonis. Can he return? He's been a big player for them in those games so far this year. Was struggling up until he suffered that hamstring injury. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Kings integrate him into things, because I feel like Jonas Valanciunas has been he's filled in on the boards and even had some high assist numbers. But a lot of, and we were talking about it last night with Brendan and Chris on our show, I feel like the defense has been a little better. And that's not saying much for a team like the Kings who have been pretty bad, or maybe let me say awful on the defensive end for the majority of the year, especially when it comes to, protecting the rim. But his physicality down there, it's a different type of attention that teams are having to pay, Sacramento in the post. And I think Domas is so good at clearing out for boards and big on the offensive glass, really. And obviously the defensive glass speaks for itself. But I think Valanciunas has that edge where you drive into the paint, you're going to probably get knocked. I mean, we saw what happened with Valanciunas and Chimezie Metu a couple of years ago. I mean, Valanciunas does not shy away from anybody going in there, and he's not quite, Mutombo down there, but he's someone who can hold his own as far as the physicality and what he brings. And I think if anything, adding Sabonis tomorrow night lengthens the rotation, and you get back to having that decent bench unit. And we'll hear about Jake LaRavia too, who missed the other night against New York with the knee soreness, but he was playing really well until then. Having LaRavia, having Keon Ellis, having Domantas Sabonis back in the fold allows you to put Valanciunas back in that bench position where he was pretty valuable. The Kings then have a 8-9 player rotation, and we'll see how they mix and match with Doug Christie, because Trey Lyles was someone who wasn't getting minutes up until Domas got hurt. He was out of the rotation. So I feel good about the Kings going to the matchup, and we'll see if getting Kuminga back is a factor and adds to that Jimmy Butler element of all the forwards they have. But I mean, again, you have to hope the juice is there. And unfortunately, it won't be Golden Wand Center's juice. It'll be out there in Chase Center.
Okay, but just to clarify, feeling good means you feel good about their chances and their ability to win the game. But do you feel like a win, do you expect a win, or are you like gut feeling tells? I mean, the Warriors are going to be favored. We know this, obviously. So are you feeling good about their chances to be competitive and steal one, or do you feel like, no, they're going to win this game?
I mean, I feel like they have every chance to win this game as much as Golden State does. I don't feel like it's a matter of where you play the Knicks and this is a team that's far better, far superior. And like a lot of games coming up, like Cleveland next week, and you have Milwaukee coming into town, who the Kings played really well and probably should have won that game in Milwaukee earlier this year. There are a couple of teams coming up where you want to look at the Kings and say, okay, clearly this team's in a different tier, and the Kings going to hopefully just hold their own and make it a game. If they believe that they're the team they believe they are, and the team at the front office and ownership and, why they made these moves at the deadline, that they can still compete, they should be able to win this game. And we've seen them do it already. We've seen them contain Steph Curry. We've seen them, go into Chase Center this year and win by 30+ points earlier this year. The excuses to me aren't really there as far as a team that's, leaps and bounds better. And yeah, they're playing great basketball. Like you said, they're, I think, 12-1 with Jimmy Butler, something crazy. Like they're playing much better than they were the last time the Kings saw them at Chase Center. But if the Kings want to be where they want to be, they can't mail it in, and they can't get rolled for sure. Like if they're going to lose in Golden State, sure. Like the battle, that's fine. But I feel like they can win this game. I think they believe they can win this game. And if they want to, play basketball past mid-April, they need to win this game.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Wayfair. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything that you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or your budget. From cozy furniture to stylish decor, kitchen essentials, and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all at the prices that fit your budget. I was looking for a new rug to tie my living room together. And I say it's really my wife. She handles all this stuff. I just say yes, dear, whenever she finds the piece that she wants. Wayfair has so many stylish rugs for her to choose from. Honestly, it was difficult for her to pick one because of the amount of great options that they had. And the prices, look, I don't know if you know this, rugs are expensive. Well, at Wayfair, you will get some good prices over there. It's more than just furniture too. They have great stuff for like storage, got some bins and things from Wayfair to help with cleaning out my garage, some patio decor too. We're looking forward to redoing our backyard in a little bit. We'll definitely be using Wayfair for that. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that is just perfect for your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by TurboTax. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, so you can get this is also you can get the time and the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. No, this is good, Frankie. This is good because this show needs more optimism because I've gone completely down a pessimistic rabbit hole with this team really since Mike Brown's firing.
You're the Reddit all-star. You're all-star of Kings Reddit.
We don't have to talk about that cesspool. Love you, Kings Reddit. I don't believe it. Like I don't. And I see the way that they're playing defensively, and it was exciting. Like, don't get me wrong. And what I really, really like is in the Doug Christie era, one thing that Doug has managed to figure out how to do that this team has struggled to do forever is win the games that you're supposed to win and do so comfortably. Right? Beating the crap out of the Jazz, beating the wounded Dallas Mavericks, beating De'Aaron Fox's San Antonio Spurs the other night in the Golden One Center. Like the games you should win 100%. Good on you for winning them. But I look at like the Knicks loss. Okay, it's the second night of a back-to-back. Some people called that a scheduled loss even before we knew the context of who was playing and who wasn't. People were calling that a loss the day the schedule came out. Okay, that's fine. If you want to call that a scheduled loss against a good Knicks team on the second night of a back-to-back at home, all power to you. But that makes the loss in Denver and the loss in LA even less acceptable. And I remember after that Denver Nuggets loss, Frankie, it was like opposite day for Matt on the podcast because I went on the show. I was like, I'm feeling pretty good. I thought they played really, really good basketball. They fell apart in the fourth quarter, but they went 3-1 on that road trip. They handled their business. That win in Houston I thought was fantastic. It's like, okay, you can build off this. Like 3-1, it's fine. You came up short, but you're playing really, really good basketball right now. The defense has been sensational. And then you have a very similar letdown where you blow a 7-point lead with 1:30 remaining against the Clippers and then lose via a buzzer beater. Part of me wants to go, hey, great fight, good battle. You came up just short, but this isn't November or December, Frankie. This is March, right? And you can't afford to have these losses, especially when you have a scheduled loss in New York coming up, especially when you have games against the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, where the Kings aren't expected to win any of those games or hoping to steal one of them. So help me out here with the optimistic, pessimistic balance, because I see what the Kings are doing well. I see this team gelling and clicking and moving in the right direction, but I also see them coming up short against the teams that they ultimately need to be beating right now, and only beating the teams that they should be beating. And I don't know how to feel about that from a positive standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying completely. And that Clippers game really, and I said it last night too, I think we're having a completely different conversation and have a completely different feel about this team if they just win that game in
Big
Los
time.
Angeles.
Big
I mean,
time.
if you can live with a back-to-back where the Kings beat the Clippers on the road in the first leg, and then you lose at home to the Knicks, who, even without Jalen Brunson, are a very good basketball team. You can live with that because they battled and they beat the Clippers team that has had their number this year so far. And a game that they really needed to win. They would have been, I think, a game back or a half game back now, or maybe even tied, I think, with LA in the standings. They would have won that game the other night because the Clippers lost to the Pelicans last night. So reasons for optimism going forward. I feel like the Golden State matchup in particular, I'm looking at it, and Golden State 10-1 their last 11 games. That's pretty bleak from the Kings' perspective.
Yeah.
But as good as they've been playing, they're using their offense to really kind of outrun people and outshoot people. Their defense is still allowing opponents to shoot 36% from three this year. And the Kings are a very good team, or very successful team, when knocking down their threes. And we saw what happened against New York the other night. I mean, when the threes aren't falling, and when you're not able to defend the three, when you're allowing your opponent to shoot 50%, you're not going to win any games. But the Kings this year, they're 14-3 when shooting 40% or better from three. That's an 82% winning percentage. They've already, I think they crossed that number once against Golden State this year. So hopefully the Kings can get their shots going. You have to have Domas back in the fold, really, I think, to kind of not space the floor, but be able to kind of be that other facilitator, because the Kings right now, to me, their offense is a little clunky. And I think that was one of the concerns when the Levine deal happened. And, Fox, the ball would stop sometimes with him, but he was a playmaker. Zach LaVine can find the open man at times, but really more times than not, you see the offense kind of go through this DeRozan or Levine or nothing kind of approach. And Keegan Murray's had his moments where he's looked pretty good or had a spot up three, or, you've had guys like Malik Monk, who's back from an injury lately, and that helps. But if the Kings kind of find a way to have more cohesiveness and get more open looks from the perimeter, I feel like they have a pretty good shot of making this a game against Golden State. And the other element that I would say is this isn't 2023 anymore. This isn't April 2023. Kevon Looney's not putting Domantas Sabonis in the torture chamber anymore. Domas this year has been great against Golden State. I mean, he's looking at these last couple of games, 22, 13, and 7 in a win, 26, 18, and 3 with a couple of blocks and another win. And that loss against Golden State, that was ugly. That was one of the games, that was one of the 3 games he played post All-Star break, and he played the best. He had 14 points, 14 rebounds, 9 assists, almost a triple-double. So even in a game the Kings played horrible, Domas has been kind of a thorn in Golden State's side. So if you get him back, and we don't know, as we're recording this, we have yet to get an update, and there's practice and a little bit here. I know that our buddy Brendan and other friends will be at practice trying to get that update to see if Domas is available. But, I feel like the Kings right now, from a three-point shooting perspective, they were shooting, 44% in the 6 games leading into that game against New York. They had an outlier performance. If they can get back to where they were before and knock down threes at a high level, I feel like the Kings are in a good spot. But, I totally get reasons for being not optimistic, especially looking at the upcoming schedule. The upcoming schedule past Golden State is just, past Friday. You have the Suns on Friday, which is a game you definitely have to still not completely turn your nose up at. That's a team that's going to be playing for their lives. It's hard to look past those couple of games, though, and say, okay, Chicago comes in at some point. That'll help, but there's really no breather.
Back-to-back.
Yeah, but there's no breather. And I feel like the Kings right now are in kind of sink or swim mode. And it's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of conversations that are going to be had coming up to, this offseason. And I think right now the jury's out on who on this roster, who on this current, whatever version of this team you want to call it, are going to be here for the long haul. Who wants to be a part of this quote unquote next wave? Because De'Aaron Fox is gone. Zach LaVine's he just turned 30 years old. DeMar DeRozan's 36, I think, or going to be 36. Domas, who reportedly wants to meet with the front office to figure out the direction of the franchise, which, by the way, I don't know who would take that contract without the Kings attaching assets. So he might be stuck here, or maybe he wants to be here. Who knows? But the Kings have to figure out what direction they're going to go into. And these next couple of weeks are going to determine that. And I mean, it's a pretty tough set of games to base your future off of. But yeah, man, I don't think you're being super pessimistic, because it's not just about the Golden State game. It's about the whole rest of the way. And I look at the upcoming schedule and think, I mean, out of 17 games, the Kings probably will be lucky to win 8 of them. I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but 8 probably is it, or 9 maybe, getting to the 500.
Yeah. Well, look, if you don't think I'm being overly pessimistic, maybe I'll change your mind too, because with this, even because I look at what the Kings are doing defensively, and to go back to what you were saying, yeah, I think this team would be feeling pretty good to go 500 through the remainder of this season. And if they do, that probably is good enough to keep them where they're at, which is the 9th seed, which means they get to host the play-in game and get a chance to beat Dallas again or something and woo, and then probably lose in the next play-in game. I don't know. We'll see. The good news about this team is the way that they're constructed. Winning a one-off game, winning 2 one-off games to actually make it into the playoffs, very realistic for this team. Once they get into the playoffs, though, they're going to be lucky not to be swept. But we'll tackle that bridge, or cross that bridge, when we come to it. Not to mention the powder keg of this offseason that we'll have plenty to talk about too. But I've been very impressed with the Kings defense recently. It's come out of nowhere. At the same time, though, Frankie, over the last 2 games, the Kings haven't scored 30 points in a quarter. So you're 100% right that bringing Domantas Sabonis back, never going to be a bad thing. Again, if we hear news that he's playing, we'll let you know. And by the time this podcast comes out and you're listening to this, we might already know if he's going to be playing or not in that game. At the time of this recording, we don't. But Sabonis coming back is never a bad thing. But I feel that Sabonis returning and Malik Monk being back is definitely going to help the offense, right? They'll probably get back to scoring 30 points in at least a quarter, if not multiple quarters during the game. But shouldn't we expect the defense to also drop off a little bit? Keon Ellis went from playing 35 or 34 minutes to 18 minutes in Malik Monk's first game back. I know it was a blowout, so maybe he would have gotten more minutes if the game was close. Jonas Valanciunas is going to drop from 35 minutes to probably 15 when Domantas Sabonis comes back. So I'm excited about those 2 coming back. They make the Sacramento Kings ultimately a better team, and offensively they will be better for sure. But I don't think it's fair or accurate or realistic to expect the defense that we've seen over the last couple of weeks to continue to translate over the remainder of the season against really good offensive opponents that are coming into town, when you're bringing back 2 starters that are very offensively gifted, but defensively we know their shortcomings.
And which is why I think that there needs to be balance. And it's been a hot topic all year. Who should start? Who should come off the bench? And there's also arguments to what does it matter? When Mike Brown was here, he would be adamant about how he didn't care about who started games, who finished. But at the same time, you want to get off to good starts. You want to get off to good starts, not be behind the 8 ball early and fall down by double digits, which we've seen it time and time again this year. The Kings get off to bad starts, and I feel like, to me, and hot take, whatever you want to call it, I feel like this version of the Kings, and this goes back to the beginning of this year and even the last couple of years, the best version of this Kings team is where Malik Monk is in a 6-man role. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that balance, having a scorer that can be effective off the bench, having that would be great, because the Kings right now are pretty top heavy with scoring. If you have Malik Monk, now that Fox is gone, you have Zach LaVine, you have DeMar DeRozan setting the table in the first unit. You have the second unit come in, and you stagger people, and you let Keegan Murray stay on the floor, who can provide shooting. You keep one on DeRozan and LaVine on the floor. You try to keep it out, that balance there. Domas isn't really someone who's a point of attack scorer, but the defense, having Keon Ellis be there in a scoring heavy lineup with LaVine, DeRozan, Sabonis, and Murray shooting, I feel like that's the best balance for this Kings team going forward. But Malik Monk, how important it is for him to start, and how much he probably doesn't want to go back and do a bench role. It was a point of contention with him and Mike Brown. It was a point of contention for him even in the years where things were going well, in the playoff year and after. Malik Monk has wanted to start since he got into Sacramento. And I think that he didn't really care much about the 6-man. He said he cared about the 6-man award, but really not enough to want to try to go after it again. He cared more about starting games. And I don't want to say Malik Monk has been a bad starter. The numbers reflect he's been a pretty good starter, but he's not a point guard.
Yeah. And
he's not a defensive guard either. And the Kings right now need that balance. And right now they just don't have it. And Keegan Murray has been, a positive there, but De'Aaron Fox is gone. And when De'Aaron Fox is engaged in buying in on the defensive end, I think he's 4th or 5th in the league in deflections this year. Keon Ellis, I think, is right above him. That's what the Kings really are missing right now. And they're still getting it done with, I think Doug's done a good job of having guys communicate. They're not a step behind on rotations anymore. They really look pretty crisp as far as their game plan goes on the defensive end. And that's great. But the balance still, in my opinion, is needed. And if they're not going to be able to do it this year in the offseason, like you said, that's a conversation to have. You have one more year of Keon Ellis before you have to figure out what his free agent is going to look like. Are you able to retain him? Because he's probably going to get a lot more than the Kings are going to be able to offer him as far as those weird contract parameters go. I know that there's a way that I think if the Kings declined his option for this year, they could sign him for a little more money, but I don't know if they're going to do that. So I think that really the best version of this Kings team has Malik Monk in a bench role, and I don't think that's going to happen, but you need a lot more Keon Ellis. You need more Jake LaRavia, who did a good job, I think, as good as anyone could have done on this Kings team defending James Harden down the final stretch of that game the other night in LA. Valanciunas, not a rim protector, but someone who's definitely provided more of a defensive presence as far as physicality goes. But like you said, Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis are going to be playing 30-plus minutes a game probably going forward, and is that going to help or hurt? We're going to find out.
Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Skims. When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family. I had to give it a try, and let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always had issues with finding the perfect underwear, right? Fit, comfort, style. These are all things that we take under consideration, and Skims changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. For me, the Stretch 5 boxer briefs, these are the perfect ones for me, right? They're perfect for an active lifestyle, moving around, covering events, running up and down the concourse at Kings games, or whether I'm working out, running errands. It's just the most comfortable and reliable underwear that I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material makes it amazing. It feels like, honestly, you're wearing nothing at all. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com/LockedOnNBA and Skims stores. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order online, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Well, let's wrap this up with a little bit of optimism when talking about individual players and individual performances. Is there a guy specifically at the top of your list on this roster right now that makes you feel like, man, they're playing really good basketball right now? They are going to be the catalyst to any success the Sacramento Kings have going forward. I feel the most confident in this player getting the Kings to the playoffs. Is there a player that comes to mind right now when you think of that?
I think it's Zach LaVine. I think LaVine really struggled out of the gates in Sacramento, but to me, it's not a matter of can Zach LaVine perform. It's, can he get more of an opportunity? And I think DeMar DeRozan right now has been great in stretches and been really, really good, especially in crunch time of games. But there are times I'd like to see Zach LaVine get a little more touches, and maybe that's on Zach to be more aggressive as well. But right now it feels like DeMar is kind of, he's, the main head of the table right now as far as the offense goes. And I feel like it probably should be Zach LaVine, especially when you look at his 3-point numbers and what he's able to do. Just the shot making ability. Chris and Brendan and I are just like rolling our eyes back there at some of the shots or step back turnarounds he takes. That's the kind of shot making the Kings have been wanting, I think, for a long time, or a kind of player the Kings have needed for a long time. But he has to get more opportunities. I think he has to be more aggressive. But I'm looking at Zach LaVine, and my kind of like sidecar player that I'm looking at as someone who's been taking a step forward to me is Keegan Murray, who's had a couple of bad games sprinkled in, but he's really shown an uptick in aggression on both ends of the floor. And he's really buying in, I think, to getting more of an opportunity and not shying away from it. So I'm looking to see how Keegan Murray finishes the year, what his numbers look like. Does the 3-point shot continue to stay where it's been since January? Can Zach LaVine be more aggressive? Can he be someone that can really take over late in games? Or is DeMar really just kind of that his job right now? And is he someone that is going to be able to, lead the offense late in games? But it's a lot of players. There's a lot of players that can step up and do more. But to me, those are the guys I think that I expect the most out of.
Well, damn it, Frankie, you stole my thunder because I was going to talk about Keegan.
You still can, Matt.
Hey, shocking. Matt George is excited or happy with something that Keegan Murray does. What a surprise. I've been really impressed with Keegan over the last couple of weeks. Defensively, I thought like in that Clippers game, that fourth quarter in that Clippers game was the best quarter of his career so far. He hit a big three. He played sensational defense on Kawhi Leonard, switched over, played fantastic defense on James Harden. We know what he's been doing on the defensive end, but one of the things I've noticed, and I asked Malik Monk about it the other night, is like right out of the gate, they're getting Keegan the ball. Keegan's getting shots immediately. And Malik was talking about like he does so much for us on the defensive end. We got to reward him a little bit with some offensive opportunities. But just Keegan seems a lot more aggressive. And Frankie, he's talking crap. Like Frankie talked some crap to Fox. He had a big three in the fourth quarter, turned around, said something to the Clippers bench. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that was crazy. The look was crazy. I was like, what is going on? But he needs to be, Matt, needs to be that kind of player. I mean, especially if the Kings are going to have to, I don't think they're going to blow it up by any means. I feel like they can't really blow it up. I think between Zach LaVine,
they're stuck.
Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan. I mean, maybe one of those contracts could be moved if they decide to do that, but you're not going to move multiple of those contracts. Honestly, probably not any, in my opinion.
Well,
but
I think DeMar's gone. I think DeMar's gone this summer.
I think he's the most likely of the three because he makes the least amount of money. And probably wouldn't have to attach as much to get rid of his contract, I'd imagine. I mean, if you're trying to get rid of Zach LaVine or Domantas Sabonis, that probably includes attaching one of those first they got in the Fox trade. I mean, no chance. But to your point, Matt, that's the kind of player the Kings need him to be. If they are going to go into this next phase, Keegan's kind of got to be that guy they wanted him to be. He's on the last year of his rookie scale contract next year. What does that next deal look like? I mean, can he be a near 20-point per game scorer and a defensive player? We're seeing him kind of do it right now. And he rebounds a basketball at a pretty decent level right now. But yeah, the confidence is everything. And him doing that showcases that his confidence is improving in year 3.
You're not going to the game tomorrow, right?
Not going to the game tomorrow night. Can't make the trip to the Bay with a baby to take care of.
Look, Frankie's a good dad, stays at home with his kid. Me? Nope. Sorry, kid.
Now, hold on. Eventually, I'm going to be, how old's your kid? 3? 4?
Almost 4.
Oh, yeah. Come on. I saw him. He's hitting home runs on your story.
Kids, stay home with your mother. I got to go to a basketball game. Daddy gets to go have fun. Good parenting right there.
I'll be helping change diapers and burp and
Frankie,
all the fun stuff.
Frankie, a present father. Me, torturing myself with Kings basketball instead of being at home with my family. Well, it's the price we pay for the love of this organization. Frankie, appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much for coming back here on the Locked On Kings podcast. Missed you, my guy. Congratulations on the kiddo. And we'll do it again very soon. I imagine we'll probably do it, whether it's hopefully around playoff time if the Kings make the playoffs. If not, we got a lot of fireworks to break down with this summer coming up. So get ready to not get any rest during this summer.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll talk to you before the Kings play in another home play-in game, or they're preparing to play OKC by some chance, which would be yippee, great. 4 more games of Kings basketball, but or we'll talk in the offseason. But I appreciate it, Matt. Good to be back, and let's see the chaos unfold.